Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for August 24, 2022 to order. The time is now 7 o'clock. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item C is a roll call of council members. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton?
Here.
Councilmember Brocksmith?
Here.
Councilmember Correas?
Here.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Holst?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Morales?
Here.
All right, thank you. Under community comments tonight, we have number one, the review of emails from the public. I'll ask Peter Donovan if there were any emails sent to community comments at mountvernonwa.gov this week.
Thank you, Mayor. No, there were no emails sent this week.
All right, thank you. Item two is our public comments. If there's anyone here that would wish to speak, they're welcome to step to the podium at this time. Anyone here for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move along into our consent agenda. There's items A, B, C, and D. That's regular council meeting minutes, study session meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, and claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Under reports tonight, we have a committee report from Finance and Parks and Enrichment Services. That's Councilmember Mary Hudson. Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. We met tonight right before this meeting. The first item on our agenda was the approval of our meeting minutes. Then we walked right into the finance portion of our meeting. We had a Library Commons project update. The mayor and staff gave an update on the bid results of the Library Commons project, as well as announced the low bidder. We all knew it, but we announced it too. Dave Jobs from OAC discussed the results and the current bid environment. The mayor then updated the council on new projected total costs of $52.7 million, which is down from $53.3 million, and discussed potential shortfall funding. The project is 89% funded at this point. Doug presented revenue projections and possible funding sources for any shortfall. The council was then asked whether or not they wanted to move forward and ready to award the bid, and as a council, we did agree that we'd like to put it on tonight's agenda. The next thing Doug discussed was the S&P Global rating, and we received really great news. We are rated AA stable from S&P Global Ratings, which is really fantastic. He reviewed the S&P report and discussed the next steps for the fire stations 2 and 3 remodel project bonds, which will be going out in the amount of $12 million on August 30th. And these bonds will be paid using our GEMT revenues. We also discussed utility billing, late fees and liens, and since the onset of COVID, the city is not applying any late fees or processing any new liens to city utility bills. The city would like to start applying these fees and new liens on the January 2023 invoices. They have not seen any increase in late payments or accounts going to lien, which is really very good news. And Doug also discussed the amount of late fee charges, which is currently 0.67%. We then went into a short discussion about the 2023 budget. Doug did review the city's current fiscal policies. We review that every year before we go and into the budget cycle. And lastly, Doug did ask the council for any ideas on budget topics that they'd like to address, and something that we should consider prior to the preliminary budget being presented. In the miscellaneous good of the order, we did have a presentation from Peter Donovan about the 1406 funding, just as a recap for us so that we can finally move forward on getting those funds out. And that was everything we talked about. We adjourned at 6:54.
All right, thank you, Mary. Item B tonight is any council member comments. Any council member comments tonight? Mark, go ahead, please.
It's not so much a comment, but I would like to make a motion to add the bid award resolution to the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mark and a second by Melissa to add the bid award project acceptance to the agenda tonight. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mark. We'll add that as item A.
I do have a comment.
Go ahead, please, Iris.
I would like to recognize Kiwanis Club and Council Member Brocksmith to be part of the chair of the Kiwanis, and it's just a recognition in the community and like a sign or how far we can go when all of us we work together and volunteer and get people involved in the community. And I am really honored to mention it, the volunteer work we did during spring, getting students doing volunteer work in the Kiwanis Club and for the Tulips Festival. We were able to provide 10 scholarships to the students. Including on them, we had 4 migrant students. They're going to be able to achieve higher education in Skagit Valley College and University of Washington and WASU. And I just wanted to say we are so proud and encourage our community just come together and do what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member comments? All right, moving on. We don't have a mayor's report tonight because I'll have a presentation in a little bit. Item D, committee agenda requests. Any committee agenda requests tonight?
I
Mary,
just
please.
wanted to revisit the First Step Center request. I wanted to have an update from whoever's in charge now.
Yeah,
I don't know who it would be at this point since Tina left for Habitat.
okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Any other committee agenda requests? Okay, great. Moving on. There is no unfinished business. Tonight, under new business, as council has indicated, they would like to add a motion regarding a construction bid award for the Library Commons project. But before I ask our city engineer to come up to introduce that item, I have a short presentation about how big of a deal tonight is, and how long we've been working on this particular project and how it intertwines with prior council members. So I will proceed with a few slides. But first, I wanted to just recognize that our library board members are here tonight. Library Foundation members are here tonight. Commissioner Peter Browning, I see, snuck in, so thank you to be here for our support with our council. And wanted to also thank our city council for a longstanding relationship of collaborativeness and trust between the executive and the legislative body. I think we're a very unusual group of people when you look around even our county and our country. Many bodies don't work like this, and so I'm really proud to be sitting here with you and to do the work we do every day, but mostly on big moments like this where it took all of us to get to this point. So thank you for that. As elected officials, just for the public, we are entrusted with our city's present, but we're also entrusted with our city's future. And it is a responsibility that is bound by an oath of office that all of us on this dais take very seriously. The Mount Vernon Library Commons project really has roots. I have 2014 on the screen, but really it goes back to 2008. So if you would advance the slide for me, that would be great. Okay. It has roots in the 2008 Downtown Master Plan. The master plan was developed by a different mayor, a different council, a group of citizen advisory committee members, and a planning commission. The planning commission happened to include Councilmember Mark Holst, who was planning commissioner at the time, and Councilmember Gary Molnar. So their roots go way back in the planning for our future. In the downtown master plan, it really talked a lot about we had to protect from flooding first, then we needed to solve a parking issue, and then we could realize economic growth and really economic sustainability through that growth in our historic downtown. After that, meanwhile, as we were working on the flood protection in 2014, the city conducted an evaluation of our library services. And at that time, we evaluated 3 different sites that a new library structure could be located on. The recommendation at the time was 40,000 400 square feet of space. The price tag at the time was $22.7 million, and it was a shock about how much it would cost at the time, and even the recommended square foot, could we even find that type of space? I do want to point out that our current library, we've had the exact same square footage in our library for 41 years today. So when projects seem overwhelming at the time, we always have the strategy that maybe we could find a partner that could do it with us, or at least something with multiple uses to make the whatever commitment of dollars would make more sense. So we started engaging with the school district. We thought, wow, they may need some admin space. The city could team together. We could look at different properties, and we started to evaluate with the school district the property where the administration building is right now in the old YMCA. That was at Lawrence and 4th Street. If you want to go back, Peter, with the slide. And we met all throughout 2014 and 2015, including a joint meeting with the school board to evaluate some preliminary site ideas at the time. It just wasn't really right for both of us to move forward, and so we decided we'll continue looking for more opportunities. So throughout 2016, we kept looking for more opportunities. And then in 2017, through some other work done called a sub-area plan, which was called South of Kincaid sub-area, which abuts our downtown master plan, our community had some really great ideas. So through a community workshop, groups broke out and started brainstorming ideas on this map. And these 3 maps show a little green arrow, and those are pointed to 3 separate groups of people saying, that place right there would be a great place for a parking structure and maybe a library. So that idea was born from 3 separate groups of community members who said, why don't we look at that? So that's where the idea of the Mount Vernon Library Commons mixed-use project was born. So then we thought, well, who else could partner with us? So we started discussions with Skagit County government in November of 2017, looking at space needs that they have from a senior center perspective, needs that we have from a shared perspective, and then for our library collection. So we started working on the avenues of collaborating with Skagit County. We then looked at massing of the site that had been identified by our community, like how could even fit, or what could even fit in there. And these are some initial work done by a company called Watry, just really kind of going, what size building could we fit on a shared property between the county and Mount Vernon, the city of Mount Vernon, and so that's what it looked like. Between July and August of 2018, the city said, we're gonna lean forward and we're gonna do some of that phase 1 environmental work. Just to see on that site, we should look at the archaeology history. We should look at the history of what was used on that site, looking for any hazardous materials, things like that. We also needed some survey work done, and discovering that the survey work had a lot of problems. In other words, there used to be 3rd Street that ran through there that was never corrected on the document. So we had a lot of work to do and decide on the site. Next up, some community members got involved too. So Christian Carlson is a member of our community. He's a downtown business owner. He is an architect. He is a planning commission member. And he used his expertise to say, all right, we took the pink block from the other picture, and we kind of put some little looks to it to say, well, what would this look like if it was located on that particular site? So we thanked our community that was getting involved. Moving on, in collaboration with Skagit County, we worked together. The city hired and paid for a design group to help us do some preliminary concept work. We met a lot. The dates on the right side are all the dates that we met with Skagit County, including a joint city council and county commissioner meeting. And we worked really hard to come up with some broad project goals and things that we felt we wanted to move forward with. So we thank OAC at the time, Integris, Architecture, and Lighting for helping us come up with a concept of how we could keep moving forward. The broad goals that came out of that work included a certain amount of square footage for the combination of a library and a community center, some type of rooftop amenity or outdoor space, a massing of the building, like how big would it actually fit into our downtown, a certain number of parking stalls that we thought we would need to achieve, a large welcoming lobby for socializing, street level parking for Meals on Wheels drivers if the county was going to be providing Meals on Wheels from from the project, good rooms with acoustics and sound. I think that was really a nod to the next thing, which was flexible rooms for lots of different activities and the ability to seat up to 200 people for an event. The concept was finalized in 2019 in the spring, and it's interesting to note that at the time, the estimated total project cost was $45 million, and included all of the broad goals that we had outlined as a group. At the time, this is what the concept looked like. It faced entrances that were on the northwest corner and northeast corner. The next slide will show you how massed inside, where we could put the uses of the library and the community center. Doesn't show the commercial kitchen in there yet, which I thought was interesting. And then moving on April 30th of 2019, the county decided to opt out from joint use. So they decided that it was expensive and that they didn't think they could continue the partnership with us. But the city knew that their commitment, that our commitment to this particular project and to our future was incredibly important, and we weren't going to be intimidated by the price or the hard work ahead. We continued negotiating with Skagit County for the property purchase. These are all the dates that we met with the county to be able to hammer out an agreement for our property option. Special thanks to Kevin Rogerson for all of those meetings and all the hard work that it took to get to that property purchase agreement. And then things really took off. March 3rd was the property agreement date that council accepted. On May 25th of that 2021, HKP, a local architecture firm, was hired for the design and engineering of the building. In July of this year, the city completed the purchase of the property. And July 21st is a very significant date because NEPA was complete. And what that means is that our heroic city team took on some incredibly challenging permitting on a federal level. And when they were told it would take a year or two to finish, they said, that's not going to work for us, and did whatever it took to get that NEPA sign off on July 21st, which enabled us to then advertise for bid on July 22nd. HKP was hired and as a local firm, but they brought with them a whole host of partners, including KPFF for civil engineering and a host of other folks on their particular team. And their goal was take a really hard look at what the building was, the site, mechanical, electrical, the sustainability goals of what we wanted to achieve in our community. The maintenance of that building, what would it look like after it was built? How was the budget? We needed to keep our community updated. And then, of course, the schedule. Before I move on that, I really wanted to give credit to our staff, because when you ask them to be part of designing a building and getting it permitted and getting it through to construction, it's pretty monumental. So our development services staff, Rebecca Lowell, Alan Danforth, Mark Sniffen, Chris Phillips, Marianne Manville-Ailes, Morgan Morrison, and a few others, really committed themselves over the last year to get to where we are tonight. In Public Works, Bill Bullock and Chris Phillips is there now too, and other support staff there really supported those efforts. Peter Donovan, Doug Valesky, Kevin Rogerson again, and of course Isaac Huffman, our library director, really dedicated themselves to get us to where we are today. We have broad community support, as evidenced by a laundry list of folks on the left side, and most importantly, our own community members, elected officials, Samish Island Nation, our county commissioners, our state representatives, our Chamber of Commerce, and others. We really appreciate the support that you've given us, and given a boost to the star of our Twitter feed, Elliot Huffman, which we appreciate his perspective in getting Secretary Buttigieg to pay attention to us. So we appreciate that. So what are we looking at doing tonight is awarding a contract to move to construction of this renderings of our building. Not only have we achieved our broad goals that we fulfilled a couple of years ago, but we've got a plus, 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 and plus. The first passive house design building in the state of Washington. The largest electric vehicle publicly accessible charging floor in the United States of America. Carbon reduction architecture that is going to lead the way for future buildings in our state. 135,000 kilowatt solar array that will power portions of our building. 9 electric bike charging lockers, as we recognize that that's a mode of transportation that's gaining traction in our community as well. Next slide is our community center with a commercial kitchen that's added. That's an entrepreneurial incubator. Folks that may want to start a business can use that community kitchen. Meals on Wheels could eventually use that community kitchen. That kitchen can serve seating of events up to 300 people with overflow. So we've achieved those goals as an economic driver and a meeting place in our historic downtown. We also have our public library, of course, an expanded space beyond what we have now that focuses on modern services that's led by Isaac and his team. Small meeting rooms, study rooms, quiet areas, public computing areas. We have a dedicated children's library that has doors that close from the rest of the library to allow for lots of rambunctious learning and play. We'll have a teen center and a STEM center. And then we have that the sustainability component for folks to have a model of construction in our community. So bringing us to today, we've gone through a whole bunch of steps. We've gone through preliminary assessment. We've gone through our site control. The next slide, Peter, is good. We've gone through design and engineering. And now we've got a bid that has been determined to be the lowest responsible bidder at a price that was 1.9% over what we thought, but still workable. So we're thrilled for that. Next steps are going to be shovels in the ground. So by the actions that staff has requested council to do tonight, we really honor our past leaders and our past councils who put plans in motion for infrastructure that is needed to sustain our community into the future. And again, a lot of gratitude to our city council for being willing to partner with us and be courageous to lean forward just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And for our staff and our community for supporting us along the way. So, sorry. With that, I'd like to invite Bill Bullock, our city engineer, to come forward and present a agenda item for a construction bid award for the Library Commons project. Bill.
Good evening, Council. Bill Bullock, City Engineer. I'm just going to read the memo that you have before you into the record. The Library's Commons project consists of a new public library and community center below 3 floors of structured parking located downtown across from the county courthouse on Kincaid Street between 2nd and 3rd. The library and community center covers 30,000 to 35,000 square feet of structured parking, and the structured parking will be approximately 125,000 square feet. The project shall incorporate sustainable strategies to reduce the overall carbon footprint, promote environmental and healthy materials, and to promote and encourage sustainable transportation options such as mass transit and vehicle charging stations. The project will serve as a gateway to the historic downtown and other regional attractions. 7 bids were received on August 18th. Thank you. Received on August 18th, ranging in price from $37,450. 37 million. I gotta use the saying million like that. I'm sorry. $37,450,000 to $43 million, with a high of $43,825,000, with the low bid provided by Lydig Construction. The Lydig bid was responsive and prepared in accordance with the contract documents. Construction cost estimate for the project was $33 $36,200,000 to $36,750,000. The Leidig bid was within 2% of this range. The bid climate throughout the state has regularly seen bids exceed the engineer's estimate by as much as 10 to 12%. Therefore, staff and OAC, the city's construction management consultant, believe this to be a favorable bid for this project. Staff recommends that City Council approve the proposed resolution authorizing the mayor to award the construction contract for the Library Commons project to Leidig Construction of Bellevue, Washington, for the bid amount of $37,450,000, and that is also $40,745,600 with sales tax.
All right, this will be Resolution 1014. Are there any questions for Bill?
I would like to move that the city council approve the proposed resolution. Again, the number was
1014.
1014, authorizing the mayor to award the construction contract for the Library Commons project to Leidig Construction of Bellevue for the bid amount of $40,745,600, which includes sales tax.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion by Mary and a second by Juan. Any other discussion? Richard?
I'd just like to recognize all the work by the mayor and the staff and support from city council. But I also wanted to just kind of note that it seems like the stars really aligned with getting this great bid from Leidig. Construction has been working in the city now for several years with the school district, and they've been on time and on budget and have produced a lot of family wage jobs for our citizens. And so I think the good news of this is, those relationships and those people will continue to work here and continue to invest those resources in this community. So there's a lot of win-wins here. So super excited about that, and thanks to the whole team who's working to pull this off.
Great, thank you. Great. Gary, go ahead.
When, Joe, when you were showing that slideshow, I was exhausted just looking at the number of meetings. I'm thinking, does it take this long and that many meetings to come up with a library? But yes, it does, and I'm thankful to the community for showing up to a lot of those. It is absolutely huge project. I think it's one of the biggest ones, obviously. But other than the flood wall, which had an immense amount of, especially with Kevin involved, where we had to do so much legal stuff with getting that flood wall. But yeah, and Joe, I know you've done a ton of work trying to get a lot of these grants, and I know it's not over yet, but it's been an overwhelming project, and I know people like to see things happen quickly, and it's not always the way it works in government, but we did put these plans forward, and it's an awesome time to see it finally coming to fruition, and I'm excited about it. So
Great, thanks, Gary.
All right, I'm going to say just a couple little things. We are here tonight, and a big part of that is because of the mayor and her drive and her energy and her leadership. It is pretty amazing. I've said on more than one occasion, just get out of her way because she's going to get it done. And I too am very, very appreciative of the working relationship that we have, all of us. And this is just a pretty exciting night. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We got a project. So now, September 17, groundbreaking, 10 a.m. We'll put more information out to our public, but we're looking forward to excited to have golden shovels. So thank you again. All right, now we've got a lot more work to do tonight, so thank you. Moving on then, so it's item B, is a public hearing regarding the update to the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. And this is Rebecca Lowell with our Development Services, and she'll be presenting the item as we transition to her slides.
There's a delay.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As the Mayor stated, the first of a handful of agenda items that I have before you this evening is for the update to the transportation element of our comprehensive plan. This amendment was necessary to put the transportation components of the Library Commons project into our transportation element of the comprehensive plan to assist us with getting additional grants. But it's always a good idea to have these types of large projects within our comprehensive plan. This one is a little bit different because not the entire project. Of course, the library components aren't within the transportation element. They're within different elements of the comprehensive plan. But the structured parking is. And so there were 4 different amendments that are proposed, and so what I did is I gave you just that subsection of that portion of the transportation element, and I've just shown, of course you can't read this slide here, but you've got the large copy in your packets, and all of the changes that are proposed are identified in red and underlined so that you can easily identify them. So I'll just quickly go through the changes that have been made. So first of all, this project, the transportation component portions of the project were added to table 4.7, which is a list of our 20-year and beyond transportation improvements. Then of course we have a map. It is figure 4.1 that we had to add the Library Commons to that map. And we also updated section 5.1 and 5.3 because they deal with our revenues and expenditures within the transportation comp plan. And big picture why this is important is that this portion of that plan also deals with projects that are eligible for impact fees and projects that go into determining what our traffic impact fees are. And importantly, this project is not a project that will increase the cost of transportation impact fees for developers. So that's what these amendments here are doing. And with that, the Planning Commission had a public hearing on August 16th and made a unanimous motion recommending City Council adopt the comprehensive plan amendments before you this evening. And as such, staff is asking council to hold a public hearing and adopt these amendments by approving the ordinance before you.
All right, any questions for Rebecca on this particular item? It would be ordinance 3854.
I'd move adoption of ordinance 3854.
Second.
Motion by Mark and a second by Gary.
Didn't have to have a public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
jeez, yeah.
Sorry, I was busy reading.
You guys are gonna have to help me tonight for this. Okay.
Might want to do that.
All right, before there's a motion in a second, we're gonna open the public hearing regarding the adoption of an amended transportation element of the comprehensive plan. Anyone wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. All right, any questions for Rebecca?
My motion stands.
Okay, we'll have Juan if he has a question, then we'll go back to Mark.
Yeah, no question. I just,
okay.
I realized that we closed the doors because there was some noises outside, but since we are gonna have a number of public hearings, could we keep at least one of the doors open so that there's no confusion that we are here and are having public hearings?
Totally fine, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure people have moved
Appreciate
on,
it.
I think, so, all right, thank you. So a motion by Mark and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Item C tonight is another public hearing to adopt the 2023 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Plan. Bill Bullock, our Public Works Engineer, is here for this item.
Oh, okay.
Want to show me which one here?
Other way. Oh, wrong. Sorry. Who was there? So before the meeting. Oh, there you go. Scroll down.
There's a delay.
Hit F5.
There's a
All right.
delay,
With Zoom on tonight, we've got a little different technological clicks. So, all right, Phil, ready?
I guess I have to answer that, don't I? Yes, I am.
All right, let's go.
So, I'm gonna go a little off topic here and just note that I just noticed that this is the first transportation plan I ever presented to Mason County Commissioners was in 1993, so. Little epiphany here. So anyway, so I presented to you a 6-year transportation improvement plan last year that's very similar to this, but we do have a couple new things to talk about. But just to go over what the purpose for transportation plans, to kind of reiterate that, is that it is an outline of the current and potential transportation needs for the city. The 6-year TIP is adopted every year as required by state statute. But at the same time, TIP amendments can occur any other time throughout the year. So the idea is that a transportation improvement program can evolve and adjust to emerging needs as they come up. So, for instance, if we had an opportunity to add a project, or we had funding come up on a project lower in the 6-year TIP, need to rearrange that priority, we could come back to council and make that happen to take advantage of funding opportunities. We are required to have a project listed on the 6-year TIP to receive state and federal funding. And then related to that, projects on the 6-year TIP, our 6-year TIP, get forwarded to the regional 6-year TIP through the Skagit Council of Governments, and then from the regional TIP get forwarded to the state transportation improvement program for federal funding purposes. And then the other piece with the TIP is it does show support to neighboring jurisdictions. For us, that would be most likely the city of Burlington and Skagit County for potential joint projects that we would support together, and also the Washington State DOT. So an example of the Washington State DOT is our Kincaid Street Corridor project that includes the 3 roundabouts. Is certainly something that we need our TIP to show state support for their joint project. So we presented the TIP to the Planning Commission, who adopted and forwarded it on to the council on August 16th. And they had some additional criteria or considerations as we prioritize projects, and I'll present those on the next slide, that they wanted forwarded to the council. And then they also had suggested 2 different projects shifting their priority to show more prominence on the 6-year TIP, if you will. So the different things that came out of the Planning Commission were they wanted to ensure that we promote walkability, promote development from the urban core outward into the city, and then enhance connections and gateways into and out of the historic downtown. Connect Edgewater Park and areas located to the west side of Skagit River to the historic downtown. And I think primarily that involves the Skagit River pedestrian bridge. And then connect amenities that are part of the city's urban core, such as the multimodal center, library, and other types of goals that we have. And then increase residential densities near the center of the city. And so those are things I think we incorporate a lot of those already when we consider projects on the 6-year TIP, but we'll certainly utilize those as well. So here's the list of our capital projects on the 6-year TIP. We also, if you recall, have 4 citywide projects on the TIP. I'll go over those in a minute. The projects that are underlined and in bold are what I have a slide for today. So I'm not going to go through the whole set of projects on a slide, but certainly if you have a question about another project, I can talk about any one of these projects and answer any questions you may have. So we do have 4 citywide projects. Our local street improvements program, which is typically our overlay program, and improving several of the sidewalks associated with those overlays. We have our signal maintenance program, so we contract with Washington State DOT for the operation and maintenance of all the city signals, and that's what that particular line item handles. And then we have a citywide sidewalk gap program and a citywide ADA sidewalk transition program. And those 2 programs are typically rolled into the local street improvements to handle those ADA deficiencies or gaps associated with the streets we are overlaying that year. But we also do others as well. We did, for instance, last year, several ADA sidewalks on Division Street that weren't associated with an overlay project. So one of the things asked about last year, I think primarily with Councilmember Holst and Brocksmith, was, okay, how do you prioritize sidewalk projects? And let's start developing a program so we can start addressing projects incrementally as specific to the citywide project rather than just simply roll it into the street program. So here's what we've come up with. We have these 6 different criteria that we've considered. So functional class, basically recognizing arterials are different than collectors and are different than neighborhoods. Not necessarily one's more important than the other, but they do provide a different focus depending on what you're doing with that particular gap or transition piece. Pedestrian generators is probably one of the bigger focuses on the list that drives things for me. And those are things like schools, parks, trails, and shopping centers, if you will, because people walk to those areas. Those are things that generate your pedestrian traffic, or where that focuses. And then collision history and hazard mitigation are part of that. Certainly if we have a collision history with pedestrians and bicycles, we want to consider that. But the other piece is you don't necessarily need to have collisions. It could simply be blind corners and blind spots and things like that you might need to address as part of that. Project scope, so these citywide programs aren't met for something like Freeway Drive, which was probably one of the bigger gaps in the city. So if we have a scope that's too big to close a gap, we might need to make that as an actual project on the 6-year as opposed to address it with this program. Existing infrastructure, is it a gap? Is it damaged sidewalk? Kind of what are we replacing? And some of that also, I didn't put that on here, is do we need to add stormwater drainage? So lots of times when you close a gap, fill in a ditch, now I got to build a stormwater system along with that. So there's some other considerations there. And the other is volume use, pedestrian volume in particular. So obviously higher volume pedestrian areas probably should take precedence over lower ones so that we can address those things. Any questions about that? And certainly if there's another thing that we should be considering, let us know. We'll figure out. The challenge is we need to have considerations that are measurable, right? That will help us prioritize things. So
Really want to thank you for putting so much time and thought into that, and looking forward to supporting you in the budget this year to make sure we're moving on those important priorities you identify.
Thank you. So I'm going to go through just sort of our project, or our kind of higher listed projects on the 6-year TIP. The first one is the Library Commons project, and this is the regional transportation supporting elements. So this is the portion of the project that supports the park and ride uses for Skagit Station. That's part of what this is. The EV charging stations, I'm going to read this a little bit. And we're going to also have a dedicated transit stop and some of those types of amenities associated with our Libraries Commons project. And those are eligible for transportation funding specifically, as opposed to library and kitchen funds, which part of our funding in Mosaic for the library is specific about where you can use them. This is the one focusing on transportation elements. And so this is the same slide, and actually the 15 million is the same estimate you had last year on the 6-year tip. And as I looked at this, it's just about the same for what we're intending to spend in 2023. So that's why it's like this here. It's still an estimate, but we're probably going to spend about that $5 million on that this year. So that's why it carries over like that. Hogan LaVenture intersection improvements. So this is a project to signalize the Hogan LaVenture Road, which is the intersection over in the vicinity of the YMCA. There are several things to fix with this intersection. A new signal, of course. We're going to connect several sidewalk gaps associated with this intersection. None of the ADA ramps in this area meets current standards. They will meet standards after this part of this project. We will rehabilitate the pavement at this intersection and add transit facilities. So that right now we have a transit facility at the YMCA, which causes lots of issues with jaywalking and some safety issues at nighttime. That's going to get relocated to the vicinity of this intersection, so that on both sides, so that way people getting off and then going home or vice versa can utilize the pedestrian facility crossing facilities at the intersection.
Bill?
And this is the one we decided to bid in January rather than this summer. Yes, sir.
Are we gonna be able to utilize any safer routes, grants for the gaps here, the sidewalk
Oh,
gaps here?
No, we funded this totally through TIB, Transportation Improvement Board, $1.3 million grant. Oops. Okay, wait a minute here, sorry. There. 15th Street sidewalk improvements. This is a project that really is strictly a sidewalk project. Originally, when I got here, this project developed, I think it was developed in 2008, included widening the street to include 3 lanes. Well, in 2012, I think with a hospital improvement project, it's been widened to 3 lanes. So then the sidewalk on the east side hadn't been retrofitted, so that's kind of the last part of that effort. And so this will bring the sidewalk up to ADA standards, and then there are some additional ramp retrofits included in this as well. We intend to design this project in-house with our own staff. So Riverside Drive Improvements 1 and 2. Riverside Drive Improvements 2 is on the north side of College Way. Riverside Drive Improvements 1 is from College Way to Cedar Street, which is 1 past Fur. This is basically one project, but I split it into 2 phases because of its size. This last spring, I was able to obtain the preliminary engineering funding to fund both projects at the same time. And so we've hired Trantec Engineering. I think I brought that to you last council meeting we had. So I'm going to talk about both 2 slides at once. So this project is designed to basically give the whole corridor a facelift. We're going to underground the utilities on the east side, and you can see the utilities in the picture are dead center in the middle of that sidewalk, which creates a variety of problems. So we'll underground the utilities, except for over the railroad tracks, they will be above ground. And then and then that will require us to replace the west side project sidewalk along the entire length of the project. There's about 62 retrofits, spot improvements on the east side sidewalk that we will address. And then we're rehabbing the pavement, improving the channelization to a variety of intersections along this corridor. It will be one of the bigger road projects we've done in quite a while. And the new street lights, because all the street lights on the west side are hooked to the power poles. When we take the power poles down, we need to put new street lights up, so that will include new street lights as well. And so this is the south side project. It is a little bit more expensive than the north side project because of the length, but nonetheless, it does the same thing as I just described to the north side. We may still construct them in 2 phases, but we will design them as the same project. Will give us continuity of design, which is important as well. 30th Street Improvements is the other preliminary engineering project that we received funding for this April. But we received funding for the road portion of it. This is a project on 30th Street. We get flooding on the south side of this segment of road on the project, which in about a foot or 2 of flooding whenever we have high water in the city. So we are going to address that, retrofit that with this. So we're going to eliminate the historical flooding. We're going to add a sidewalk to the west side. Right now there's no sidewalk on that side. And then on the east side, we're going to replace the sidewalk with a bicycle pedestrian path that continues from Bakerview North to College Way. And then the other thing this also will involve, we may phase it, depends on whether or not we get additional grant funding for it, but we will also include a fish passage culvert and stream restoration, probably 200 feet up and downstream. LaVenture Blackburn intersection improvement. So that concludes kind of our funded projects. So we have funding or in process right now. So the next set of projects, a few projects, LaVenture Blackburn intersection improvements. This is just a signalization project. When this project was constructed, the sidewalks and ramps were constructed with the intent of fitting a signal in. So we do not have to redo that particular piece of infrastructure on this project. We have looked at a possibility of a roundabout here, and the difference in cost of a roundabout is about $2.10 million for a roundabout versus under $1 million for a signal. So still go either way, but that's a choice we'd have to make. And this is also the second highest volume intersection after Hogan Road for stop signs, controlled by stop signs in the city. Oh, and, sorry, the circle with the arrow on it is this project. The segment with the red line off to the east, that's the Blackburn Road improvements too, that's just in the vicinity. I just kind of wanted to show that there has some continuity of other projects on this. That will kind of come up later a little bit too. LaVenture Road widening, another project we have. This is just south of the Hoag-LaVenture intersection we're going to improve next year. This mainly involves widening the road slightly, so we get bike lanes and then the sidewalk on the east side, and also fill in the ditch and put in a new stormwater system. And part of this is the Sigmar Lane, where this begins, is right where the student housing is for the college. And we have a lot of traffic between there and the YMCA. So this kind of completes that piece in there. And this is another big sidewalk gap that's too big for our annual program, but certainly it's a good project level. The River Dike Trail System, Phase 1. This is a project I brought to you last year. We had federal funding on this. This project's actually been pushed out a bit because the Dike District right now is involved in raising the height of their dike to meet the height of our flood wall on the other side of the river. And so that's going to be a few years in the making because they've got some permits to obtain with the floodplain and whatnot. So we're working with them on it, but we are shifting our timeline to better match their timeline. But this is also a project that would segue potentially into the county for them to continue this trail into the county as it leaves our city limits.
Bill, had we
Yes, sir.
identified some money for that project already? Is that being transferred somewhere, or am
It's
I
not be-
misremembering?
No, I was able to get a TAP grant as opposed to a surface transportation grant through SCOG, $304,000. And so that's what we have to, we may not run all the way along the top of the, like I said, I'm working with the Dike District, depends on how they have to build their dike with their effort. But we could run along the park side of the dike until a point where we can jump up on the top again. But that's the money we have identified for it right now, both for PE and construction. It just depends on when we trigger, when the money happens.
Thank you.
But we're not gonna bring it forward to design until they have a very good idea what they're doing. Otherwise, we just end up redesigning. And then First Street widening. This is, we just got done overlaying basically the bulk of this project limits last year. If you remember, we did a joint effort with Skagit PUD because they installed a water line. So this project will change a bit. I haven't changed it in this slide. But basically what that would involve is, again, a little bit of road widening and installing the sidewalk on the east side and filling in the ditch. It would also involve a few property owners that would need their driveways re-sculpted and that type of thing, because they're up kind of on a steep hill if you drive down that road. We would be worsening that a little bit, so we need to figure out how to make that right. But that would basically get this section of road that's just south of Bakerview Park to a full, complete street standard. And then 30th Street Improvements 2. This is another phase of 30th Street south of Fur. So we have an old section of City Street that's, yeah, I'd say it's an old section. It's an older neighborhood where we have houses that are 2 to an acre, 3 to an acre type thing. And there are literally pavement, edge of pavement, no edge line, immediate ditches. And it leads right into the neighborhood to the south that has sidewalk, curbs, gutter, and everything else. So the idea is that we would be upgrading this piece of road to the same standards, so people from that community have sidewalks to walk to Bakerview Park and everywhere else in the city on. Right now, I got ladies pushing their babies in strollers right in the road, and I need to stop that. So the last project to present to you real quick is another one that I've been getting a few questions about, is the Fowler Trail connection, and I'm gonna use my mouse a little bit. Yes, well, you know what? And I don't have my laser pointer, so anyway, we'll try the mouse thing. Is that translating? Okay, it's really slow on that screen, it's zooming. So what we have, this is a project, the picture that you see on the screen is a picture of the sewer easement we have running south of the school and behind the houses to the south. So this project is a bicycle pedestrian path that would utilize the north side, the first part of the project would utilize existing city right-of-way to do. Then there's some right-of-way purchase to make as the trail would turn to, so you see how the trail kind of zigzags kind of through the property. The goal is to get this trail to Little Mountain Road that leads to, or sorry, not Little Mountain Road, Big Lake Road that leads to Little Mountain. And T1026 identified on the thick line on the bottom of the screen, that is another 6-year TIP project intended when that property develops, they will connect the existing 30th Street to Blackburn. So there's a nexus coming together of these projects, okay? So you continue that bicycle ped path to that intersection as we would finish that intersection. Now there's an alternative. If we build this project before then, there's a dashed line that goes straight to Blackburn Road, and we could do a section of Fowler that just initially goes to Blackburn and then later add the other piece, and then they could both serve the community that way. And then if I go back to LaVenture Road, this, there you go. The road segment project there is the one that ties all of those elements together, okay? So then you would have a complete bike ped sidewalk all the way to our city limits before you go to Little Mountain down Blackburn. Okay, so that's all the project presentations I have for you. Do you have any other questions about any of the other projects I can answer now? Okay, hearing none. So the priority considerations that, one, the Planning Commission asked the council to consider, but also I believe there's been some questions about the Blackburn Road Extension project as well. It is largely a developer-driven project, but the idea here is, do they stay on the 6-year where they are, where we have them today, which is in the kind of the bottom third unfunded section of our 6-year tip, and whether you raise them in priority or not, you'd still be funding them in the 6th year. The idea is some jurisdictions have, want that perception of that they are higher on the list and more visible. From a practical standpoint, from what the capability I need to take advantage of things, they just need to be on the list, okay? So I just want to make that clear, but perceptions are everything sometimes, so that's appropriate as well. So the different choices are, we could leave them, we're on the 6-year tip where they are, and then move them higher if it's appropriate, which we can do any time during the year during amendment, or you could reposition them. Some places I've had projects repositioned to the top of the list, so we'd put them 5, 6, and 7 in some order like that, and then they could be there, and that's fine. Or the other option would be is put them on top of the unfunded list, which would be priorities 11 through 13. Either can happen. In my experience, it doesn't necessarily make them happen faster. I've had projects I've moved on the top of the list. Belfar Bypass is one of the most important projects in Mason County, and I think I did that in '94, and it's just getting built now. But it's one of those things where it's on our radar. We are looking for the opportunities, and we are ready to take advantage of them when they present themselves. But it's something for council to discuss amongst themselves and let me know what they'd like me to do. I'm happy to do whatever suits your fancy.
So for me, it's always been, we have these projects on the list, so funding opportunities come available, that we can apply for those grant funds.
Yes, sir.
We really never prioritized anything, the stuff we have funding for, obviously we're gonna get done, those are gonna come off the list. I mean, yeah, I got some favorites up there, a pedestrian bridge across the river. I brought that up a number of years ago. Mayor did a bunch of work, and there's been some architectural design done. be a great project. We're not gonna be able to afford to do that anytime soon. While you look at some of the other communities or the other neighborhoods where you've got, those prioritized maybe a little bit higher than that, that's gonna directly affect people's lives daily. So it really is a health and welfare issue when you're talking about putting sidewalks in, making pedestrian walking trails. Those are things that should be in the priority, and I don't see a need to make any kind of a statement other than our work is, we have it on the list, funding becomes available, we can apply for those grant monies and get it done. So I think the way we've done it prior and the way you have it now is fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, Phil? It's very true. It doesn't matter where it's on the list. It's really driven by what the opportunity of the funding comes up. And when it does, we take a look and see, what we could get done, so. All right. If there's no questions, we can open the public hearing. All right?
Yep.
We'll open the public hearing for the adoption of the 2023 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Plan. Anyone wishing to speak about this particular plan? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Oh, wow.
This would require a resolution, so it would be Resolution 1015 if council chooses to take action tonight.
I would move the adoption of resolution, what is it, 1015?
1015. Right.
Real quick, Rebecca has a point.
Oh,
Pardon me. So if the council doesn't wish to reprioritize any of those, the projects that were listed, I would ask that within your motion, you state that under section 2 of the resolution, subsection B2 be removed, because that would be removing that portion of the planning commission's recommendation to you.
so either way, if we can accomplish his goals. So,
It seems like it's a kind of a bigger question because as Mark and the mayor said, that they're not necessarily prioritized now, they're sort of sequence giving funding and unfunding. So the resolution shouldn't call them out as being prioritized because the rest of them are not. So I think I understand that.
But just a point of clarification, all that subsection says is that you're adopting the planning commission's recommendation, and their recommendation had 2 parts. The first part was the policy considerations. The second part was asking you to prioritize 2 of those projects higher on the list. So just to make sure, if you're not going to prioritize, then you will not be recommending, you won't be adopting that specific planning commission recommendation.
And the first part of that, the policy considerations, were the first slide you presented, right, which all made a lot of sense.
Correct.
The second part doesn't seem to fit into the way we do the TIP.
Are
Mark,
we looking for an amendment?
Mark, did you you made a motion? Okay.
I did.
Okay.
With the recommendations, or with the clarifications that Ms. Lowe made on basically a rejection of the planning commission's recommendations.
The prioritization
Correct.
recommendation. Okay. Is that clear for the clerk that we know what we're doing?
Section 2, subsection
E.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that. Thank you for all the clarifications. I appreciate it. All right, there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second by Melissa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for all the work on that. All right, item D tonight is a public hearing for our Mount Vernon Municipal Code Amendments, Chapter 17.09 and 17.56. And we'll be switching around our technology.
Mayor,
Yeah.
maybe while they're doing that, I know that you continue to kind of keep in the back of your mind the pedestrian crossing, and you've had some recent conversations with DOT, and you briefed us on that recently. But it is an interesting topic. I think many of us would like to hear a bit more about, so I wonder at some point in the future if that can kind of respect what the planning commission was saying, but also kind of keep that on a front burner and talk about it in the future.
Absolutely. I'm anxious to be able to share the DOT, with the public, and so we've asked them, when can we do a press release and a joint? They'd like us to hold off a little bit so they can get some of that, the clarification around what their requirements are with complete streets. But I think it's a great idea. Once we have that, we'll invite them, WashDOT, to come and I think share about that entire project, because I think it's of interest to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, we'll bring that forward.
Timing that works for you. That's
Yeah.
your discretion, so thanks.
Perfect. All right, go ahead, Rebecca.
All right, thank you, and good evening again, council. So this next agenda item I have is asking council for adoption of an ordinance for code amendments to two different chapters of our municipal code. The first one is to chapter 1709, and that amendment would be adding the comprehensive plan designations associated with a handful of different zoning designations to correct that chapter of the code. Right now, the reason why this is important that we correct this is that it's possible that somebody could ask for a rezone, and we could, if this isn't corrected, not be able to process just a rezone. We would also have to require the once-a-year comprehensive plan process, and we want to avoid that whenever we can. So that will clean up that table within our municipal code. And then in addition, we're asking for an amendment to our commercial and limited industrial district. As you'll recall, between 2013 and 2017, the city passed a number of different ordinances with regard to marijuana uses. And what we ended up with in our existing code is that we have a set of regulations that require 1,000-foot separation from a number of different type of amenities, parks, schools, daycares, transit centers. We also require that 1,000-foot separation from residentially zoned areas. And although there isn't a separation requirement, we also don't allow marijuana uses to be located within either of the two mobile home parks that are in our South Mount Vernon area. So the amendment before council would reduce the separation distance from 1,000 feet to 500 feet just for transit centers, because we do have one transit center, as you're aware, the Skagit Transit Park and Ride that's located in South Mount Vernon. The Planning Commission, this was one of the items that was also on their August 16th agenda. And they made a unanimous motion for City Council to adopt the code amendments before you this evening. And as such, staff is asking Council to hold a public hearing and adopt these amendments by approving the ordinance before you.
All right, questions for Rebecca on this? All right, this would be ordinance 3855.
Public hearing.
Oh, dang it. Public hearing, all right. We need to open the public hearing on amendments to Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 17.09 and 17.56. Anyone here wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a question.
Sure.
And if I could guide to, let me see here. Section 4, subsection F, subsection F to number 2, under C, 2C, so specifically on page 6 out of 8. On C, I just want some clarification on the language regarding elementary and secondary school. Had some confusion about that, so just making sure that secondary school not only encompasses middle schools but also high schools. So I'm seeking definition for secondary school.
Yes, correct. A secondary school would be something other than your elementary school, and that was language that was adopted straight from the RCW that regulates marijuana uses. And what we were making sure of here is that there was no confusion with regard to, this ordinance had a blanket 1,000 feet to start with. And it was pretty straightforward, but then when we were pulling out just the transit center piece, this was reiterating that, to make sure there was no confusion, so that transit is not listed in here, but all of the other amenities that were previously listed are listed again in this subsection, to make sure that there's, the separation distances that are in place now will still apply, which would include a high school or a middle school, elementary school. The only reduction is for the transit centers.
Okay. But section C is still highlighted as red, isn't it? Meaning that it was a proposed
It is
change.
because of the way that that was written.
Uh-huh.
I was afraid that there would be some confusion under that, and so it's just stating again the same language, but taking out that transit center. So it's not, it isn't, those regulations have not been changed.
Mhm.
I'm just, in the context of that section of the code,
Mhm.
I was just making double and triple sure
Uh-huh.
that there would never be a question,
Okay.
that it's still staying in there. Because we do a lot of that, you know, we get questions. A good part of what I do is answering questions from folks, and I thought, well, we're if they actually read it, this hopefully would answer their question. There wouldn't be any ambiguity in the other section there. Because
Okay.
it is a confusing one to read through, all of those separation requirements and when they apply and don't apply.
Okay, so then I guess my confusion for C was that just to make sure that it encompasses, secondary schools that are middle schools and high schools. Because I mean, I mentioned elementary or secondary, so would it have been primary or secondary schools? I don't know.
I don't remember. I just copied what we had before that was right out of the RCW, so I apologize. I haven't looked at with those and such. I haven't looked at those definitions, I'll say,
Mhm.
since at least 2017 when we did that. And I can send you an email tomorrow
Yeah.
and follow up on that too.
Okay.
I don't want to, I'm not going to lie to you. I honestly haven't looked at them in years.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I do. So that I don't know. I guess I just for today's questions in today's session, I just want to make sure that before it's motioned and approved that it is encompassed. So I'm not sure if I would. I don't know. Ask the city attorney. The city attorney has a definition.
I'm looking right now.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Fowler?
No, while we're waiting for an answer, I'm gonna go ahead and move the adoption of ordinance, was it 3855?
3855, yes. Second. All right, motion by Mark and a second by Melissa.
School is defined as any building or part thereof which is licensed by the state and is designed, constructed, or used for elementary and secondary education. So if you call it a secondary school, that would incorporate any secondary education. Secondary education is not defined, therefore you would probably provide the ordinary common meaning, which would include a high school,
Excellent.
under the rules of statutory interpretation.
All right, thank you. So there's a motion by Mark and a second by Melissa. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you. All right, item E tonight is a closed record public hearing regarding a site-specific rezone. And again, Rebecca Lowell is here for this item. Rebecca.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor stated, this request is that council hold a closed record public hearing and make a decision on a site-specific rezone. This is a site that's a little under an acre. It's 0.2 acres in size, and I've got it shown on the aerial map here. It's on the north side of Blackburn Road, roughly between Old Highway 99 on its west and I-5 to the east. And I've got it's comprised of several parcels that I've highlighted here on the map. The existing zoning of this site is light manufacturing and commercial, or what you hear us call the M1 zone. And the proposed designation is for a commercial limited industrial zone. And just point of interest, the commercial limited industrial zone is the dark purple that you also see on the south side of Blackburn Road. So it would be just continuing that zoning a little bit to the north. The applicant's reason that they had given us for wanting this is that they would like to install on a portion of the property a drive-through espresso stand, and the M1 zoning of the site doesn't allow that, but the CL zoning would. So this rezone will allow them to develop this piece of property that, as many of you are aware, has been sitting vacant for quite some time. So this is a project that required the hearing examiner hold a open record public hearing, which he did on July 14th. He recommended approval to council, and as such, staff is recommending council approval of the ordinance before you, of course, after having your closed record public hearing, and the result of which would be to rezone the subject site from the M1 to CL.
Any questions for Rebecca before we open the closed public hearing? With that, we'll open that hearing regarding Blackburn Road and Railroad Avenue rezone plan 20-0229. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the closed record public hearing. All right, if council wishes to adopt its ordinance 3856.
Make a motion that council move to adopt ordinance 3856.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Mary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item F is a closed record public hearing regarding a master plan, traffic concurrency, and design review for the Library Commons project. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you. So I think I'm the third presenter tonight to talk to you about this project, so I apologize. I'm just going to briefly go over a few of the specifics. As you know, we've got an approximate 30,000 square foot structure that will include a public library, a community center, and structured parking. There are no wetlands or streams on or adjacent to the project site, and the site is not located within the 100-year floodplain. So this project requires a master plan, design review by the Design Review Board, and transportation concurrency approvals. As the council will recall, the only time that transportation concurrency projects come before the council is when 75 p.m. peak hour trips or more are being generated, which this project is. So what happens in those types of instances when we get those projects that come in like that is that we consolidate them together and we process them at the highest level of all of the permits. So that's why I have the master plan, design review, and the transportation concurrency approvals all before you this evening. Interestingly as well, we also had to have the design review board at a meeting, not a hearing, make a recommendation to the hearing examiner on the design review components of the project as well. So this project has, of course, because of its magnitude, has a lot of different elements. Again, I've got the site identified here, and you can see I've got Kincaid Street on the north, Broadway on the south, and 2nd and 3rd Streets identified. You've all seen these pictures, but they're still great, and I like showing these a little bit better than the architectural renderings that we get in our construction plan set because they're really difficult to see at this scale what's going on. So the hearing examiner held a public hearing on July 14th and recommended conditional approval of this application to the City Council. Staff recommends council hold this would also be a closed record public hearing, and approve the resolution before you. And this resolution does contain all of the conditions of approval that were recommended by the hearing examiner. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, we'll open the closed record public hearing for the master plan, traffic concurrency, and design review permits for the Library Commons project. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Thank you. All right, questions for Rebecca? This would be a resolution 1016.
Well, since we already put the thing out to bid, we better pass resolution 1016. Or approve the construction of it.
Okay, motion by Mark, or second by Richard. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, item G is the approval of agreement with Friendship House. Peter Donovan is here.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councils. Council. That's the plural. Proudly standing before you tonight with no PowerPoint to share with you. Before you tonight is an agreement with the Friendship House. This is a CDBG Friendship House, or CDBG agreement for past action plan money. So council has already approved this use, HUD's approved this use. This is when we finally do need to send the money to Friendship House for their activity, then we need this agreement in place. So this is for repairing their siding and painting of Barber's House, their transitional housing location. And it is definitely in need of those repairs, as are some of their other facilities. And we'll bring an agreement each time for those facility repairs. So tonight, staff is seeking a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Friendship House for CDBG funding to address those facility repairs and maintenance.
All right, questions for Peter on this item?
I had no questions. I would motion to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Friendship House for CDBG funding to address facility repairs and maintenance.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Juan, a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item H is the approval of House, we call it House Bill 1406 grant funds. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, council has been considering how to distribute the initial collections of the city's affordable housing sales tax credit, referred to as 1406 funding. The future 1406 allocations are going to be going to Martha's Place, the permanent supportive housing project that's being constructed now. So that'll help toward the operations of that. Before that, funding can be used for those operations. Once it's open, there's about a year and a half of collections that the city has. Council's indicated that they wanted to distribute that funding to local nonprofits who fit the criteria for the funding. And that criteria includes serving residents who are at or below 60% of Mount Vernon's area median income, and to be used for acquiring, rehabilitating, constructing affordable housing, also for the operation and maintenance of new affordable housing units, and it can also be used for rental assistance. So through this process, we have identified some nonprofit agencies who could use the money for those purposes. They've made their requests. Council has asked for a neutral third-party committee to review those applications and make a recommendation. And after some discussion, the following allocations have been recommended, or being recommended to council for this 1406 grant funding. And they are to the Friendship House, $55,000, to YouthNet, $10,000, to Family Promise, $25,000, and to IRIS, which is Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services, $30,000. So tonight, council is hoping to, or staff's hoping to finalize those agreements, those allocations, and looking for a motion to approve the designated agencies and the award amounts for the city's 1406 grant program.
Questions for Peter on this item?
I'd make a motion to
Not
approve.
having questions, I would like to move and approve this Fund 1406 in grant award.
All right, thank you.
Oh, second it.
All right. Motion by Iris and a second by Gary.
She squeezed me. I mean, I was well into it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same side. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Nicely
Thank you
done,
for
Iris.
your nice job.
All right. Item I tonight is an approval of an agreement with Beckworth Consulting Group. Jennifer Brenner, our Director of Parks and Enrichment Services, is here for this item. Jennifer.
Good evening. I am here this evening to chat with you about updating our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan element of the comp plan. And so we went out and sought bids from 3 different consultants. 2 of them I had worked with before, and one that I had seen that they had done some other comp plan work. Beckworth came back with a very good bid for this project within the scope of work and within the budget. And so we are recommending to work with Beckworth Consulting, and they are out of LaConner, so they're local. He's done a lot of plans over the years for a lot of different cities, so he's up to speed on how these plans work and how they integrate into our comp plan. This particular plan, what it will do is the process will develop a system-wide approach to priorities and strategies based on our current and future funding scenarios. The plan elements will include goals and objectives, inventory, public involvement, demand and need analysis, capital improvement program, and updating our most needed park impact fees. So it will encompass all of that, and we will probably look to have this done by about this time next year, if not a little bit sooner.
All right, great. Any questions for Jennifer on this item?
And the funding for this is in our current budget.
Yes.
If there's no questions, I will move the adoption of the agreement with Beckworth Consulting Group.
All
I'll
right,
second the motion.
thank you. Motion by Mark and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Item J tonight is the approval of an agreement with the town of LaConner. Chris Phillips is here for this.
Hi, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, staff recommends a motion by council to extend the city's current agreement with the town of LaConner for yard waste disposal and composting services for an additional 4-year term. The city entered into the original agreement back in October 24th, 2018. The city provides yard waste disposal and composting services to residents and has an agreement with the town of LaConner for the disposal of those items. Current agreement expires on September 30th of this year, and this offer is an extension for an additional 4 years. At the time of the extension, the agreement has a flat rate not to exceed $38,350 for the first year and would implement a 3% increase each of the following years. The agreement with the town of LaConner has been beneficial for the city at a savings greater than $10,000 per year, and city staff recommends executing the option to renew the agreement for an additional 4-year term with a 3% annual increase, pending any questions.
All right, questions for Chris on this?
I had no questions, so I would motion for extending the city's current agreement with the town of LaConner for yard waste disposal and composting services for an additional 4-year term.
All right, thank you.
Second.
Motion by Juan and a second by Mary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And the next item, item K, is the approval of an agreement with Nuvoda LLC. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and Chris Phillips is here.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends the council pass the proposed resolution with Nuvoda LLC for the equipment lease associated with nutrient removal process in the amount of $144,000 plus freight. The wastewater treatment plant is currently operating under the new nutrient general permit. The new permit is limiting nutrient discharges and requiring the development of an optimization plan to further reduce nutrient discharge to the Skagit River. Due to the treatment plant's design, there is a reduced hydraulic capacity during nutrient removal mode. With the requirement to reduce the combined sewer overflows to no more than 1 per year, the city would be unable to meet those requirements within the nutrient removal mode. The Nuvoda process will allow the plant to maintain high flows to meet the required CSO reduction while also helping to meet new nutrient discharge limits. As a part of the optimization plan, staff has been researching the mobile organic biofilm process by Nuvoda. Nuvoda's MOB process has proven in other applications to significantly increase the biological treatment process needed to remove nutrients. The MOB process will allow the plant to maintain a high hydraulic flow while maintaining nutrient removal. The resolution allowing the trial study will give the waste utility an opportunity to determine if MOB process will help reduce nutrient discharges at a level that meets the requirements of the optimization plan. Staff recommends council approve the resolution and authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement with Nuvota.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions on this one? This is a resolution, 1017.
I'd move to approve Resolution 1017.
Thank you. Motion by Gary, a second by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Item L tonight is the approval of an allocation the approval of an agreement with Teamsters Local Union number 321. Erin Cater, our HR director, is here. Erin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight requesting that Council authorize the mayor to sign the Teamster Collective Bargaining Agreement for January 2022 through December 2024. The current agreement expired December 31st, 2021. We began negotiations at the end of last year, came to a tentative agreement earlier this month, and then the union ratified the contract last week. Some of the highlights are COLA adjustments for the Teamsters. There's a 2% increase at the beginning of this year, 2% July 1st, and a 4.5% increase on January 1st, 2023. And then there's a CPI for January 1st, 2024. We've decreased the comp time banks and added language that they have to use comp time before vacation. We've decreased the maximum vacation accrual for their vacation banks. We added Juneteenth as a holiday, and then we were able to implement the class and comp study. So again, I'm recommending that council authorize the mayor to sign the Teamster Collective Bargaining Agreement.
All right, questions for Erin on this?
No, I'd just like to compliment Erin on the work that she had to do on this contract. It's, as we see inflation and everything rising, these collective bargaining agreements get a little bit more and more difficult to work with, and I think you did a great job on that, so thank you, Erin. I would move the collective bargaining agreement, or move approval of the collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Union number 321.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion by Mark and a second by Juan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Erin, for your work on that. Item M tonight is the approval of an allocation and release agreement. Kevin Rogerson, our city attorney, is here for this item. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor, and distinguished members of the City Council. Tonight is a request to approve an allegation agreement on the release of claims. As you know, Mount Vernon is a party, along with many, many other local jurisdictions, that are engaged in litigation and seeking to hold the pharmaceutical supply chain and prescription opioid companies accountable for the damage they have caused to local governments. Before you is an agreement that is a statewide agreement, not only by the state attorney general, but all the local jurisdictions, all counties and cities with a population of 10,000 and over, against claims against distributors named in the allocation agreement, which is McKesson, Cardinal Health, Amerisource, Bergen. This is a claim that not only the cities have filed lawsuits in the county and some school districts against, but the state was taking this to trial. And the proposed global settlement was reached to a tune of $430,249,769.02, paid over 17 years amongst the complete state and its local entities. After bargaining and negotiating with the state has agreed, in return for the city settlement of its claims, that the cities and the counties and the local jurisdictions would get 50% of that settlement amount. So that's the local jurisdictions take if 90% of the participating, if 90% of the non-litigating primary subdivisions agree and all the litigating local jurisdictions agree. We have till September 23rd to reach such agreement. If you approve this tonight, we will have done our part. The memo sets forth a default allocation of the Mount Vernon share, which is something that you've already agreed to in a previous memorandum of understanding amongst all the participating local jurisdictions, priming ourselves for this time, because we wanted to show that we were ready to settle claims to have maximum leverage to the state and the distributors to know that they would be done with their lawsuits in the state of Washington. With the disclaimer of never trust a lawyer and his math, you'll probably want to know what the default allocation to the city is. You're going to take some out for administrative costs, and you're going to take a little bit out for attorney's fees, but a conservative estimate would be roughly $550,000 paid over 17 years. Certainly, we can pull our resources with county and other local jurisdictions and how to effectively leverage these funds together. That would be your default allocation if you couldn't reach agreement. Staff is recommending that you approve the allocation agreement with the release of opioid claims, which is a subcomponent here as well.
Great. Questions for Kevin on this item?
I have no questions, I'll make a
Nope.
motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Council approve the allocation agreement and release.
All right.
Second.
We'll do a motion to Melissa, second to Iris, and then Richard had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't think I ever asked you what other jurisdictions were party to this in Skagit County. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. 'Cause I wouldn't be able to tell you. Skagit County is a litigating
Yeah.
jurisdiction. I believe the school board is a litigating jurisdiction, several of the local cities. But regardless if you're a litigating jurisdiction or not, you will get the allocation set forth here if you're a town or city of over 10,000. That was the deal struck.
Oh, okay.
But they require all the litigants to release their claims as a condition because we have active lawsuits and 90% of the non-participating to release.
So everybody who participated in any town or jurisdiction over 10,000, essentially.
Any town or city over 10,000 will get an allocation. Anybody less will have to ask either the state or the local jurisdictions who can pool their resources.
It's going to be an interesting
allocation
discussion
funds.
about, how to best utilize that money and how to partner with other groups. So, thanks for answering my question.
Sure.
All right, there's a motion by Melissa, second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item N is the approval of an agreement with Banner Bank. Kevin's here for that.
This is a little bit of old business, but it's ready to be approved. When Banner Bank, the owner of the real property located directly across from City Hall at 901 South Cleveland Street, was formerly the Skagit State Bank. When that bank no longer ceased being used as a bank, their rights to ingress and egress over our parking lot automatically terminated. Banner Bank, who is trying to sell the property, has asked for the city to consider again allowing ingress and egress rights to the parking lot directly south of the bank. After discussion with staff and city council, we as staff have negotiated a revocable egress, which means you can revoke this at any time. It's not an easement right. It's not exclusive, so you can use the parking lot as well to allow them egress, not ingress and egress, but egress through the parking lot as an exit to maximize their use, highest and best use of that piece of real estate which they're selling. In addition to performing, they'd have to perform the necessary survey services so we could get a legal description of what the egress area would be. A condition was to remove certain improvements constructed by Skagit State Bank, which is the, I think it was a vacuum tube. I don't know if they even make those anymore, that goes up to the teller. And all of those construction improvements that was a condition of the old agreement have been removed to the city's satisfaction. They'll have to apply necessary directional markings to show where egress is and a payment of the funds set forth in the agreement for the city to make certain improvements to the area so we can prevent ingress and egress towards the parking lot. This was previously discussed with the city council. This would memorialize the understanding, and this would then, if they perform all those services, get the surveyor, would result in the revocable grant for egress, which would be recorded with the county.
I would move the approval of the agreement with Banner Bank for egress from the property.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mark and a second by Juan. Any other questions? Right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, oh wait, opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you. Sorry. All right, item O tonight is the approval of an agreement with Skagit County. It looks like Chris Phillips is here on this item. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor. So this is the interlocal cooperative agreement between Skagit County and the City of Mount Vernon for bridge inspection services. Staff recommends renewing the interlocal with Skagit County to continue bridge inspection services. City owns and maintains 13 different bridges that need to be inspected as prescribed by state and federal law. The proposed agreement allows the city to continue to economically obtain these important services by the county. These bridges are inspected at least biannually as part of a regular maintenance agreement to comply with state and federal regs. This agreement with the county to provide routine bridge inspection services for the relatively small number of bridges is an economical choice compared to providing these services in-house or by a consultant. The annual cost of inspections is approximately $5,000 per year for all 13 bridges. Staff recommends council authorize the mayor to enter into and renew the interlocal agreement with Skagit County to continue to provide bridge inspection services to the city.
All right, questions for Chris?
I had no questions, so I would move for the first for council to authorize the mayor to enter into and renew an interlocal agreement with Skagit County to continue to provide bridge inspection services to the city.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Juan and a second by Richard. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Item P is the approval of an agreement with Skagit County. Our police chief, Chris Kamick, is here for this particular item. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Excuse me, good evening. Here tonight to request the council approve the mayor enter into an interlocal agreement with Skagit County to reimburse for temporary housing costs, specifically motel rooms associated with the police department's homeless outreach services. We currently participate with Skagit County in their low barrier shelter program that they have a contract with a facility. But what we found is not every client that we work with meets those facility needs. Our embedded social worker actually has a couple of clients they've been working with, talking with the county, so the county transferred some funds from that area that they're using with it to be able to tailor around some of the clients that don't fit that. So like currently we have at least one individual that we're working with some wraparound services that this would apply to, so that it doesn't take away from all of our other funding that we have for programming.
Right. Any questions for Chris?
No, I would move the adoption of the interlocal agreement with Skagit County for funding of temporary housing.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion by Mark with second Iris. Was that Iris again? Second Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Chris. All right, item Q tonight is to set a public hearing date for a street vacation. Rebecca Wool is here from Development Services.
Yes, thank you. So what we're asking you to do tonight is to set a public hearing date for September 28th. This is it's an unusual process. There are a few types of items that we bring before council, and this is one of them that actually requires us to ask you to set the public hearing date before we actually come to you with a street vacation. So the street vacation we'll be asking you to look at on September 28th involves portions of the alley south of the Library Commons project, portions of the 3rd Street right-of-way, the south side of Kincaid, abutting the Library Commons project, and the platted 3rd Street right-of-way. But I also would like to mention, and it will hopefully avoid any potential phone calls in the morning with people thinking that we're vacating any of those roads in a way that would affect the existing access. We're not. What you will see on September 28th is that we're asking for subterranean or underground easements and above grade easements. And those are necessary because the foundation of the Library Commons building Those underground foundation will be underneath a portion of that alley. So those are the subterranean vacations that we're asking for. And there's portions of the structure that hang over the alley as well. So within that existing alley, access that is currently afforded to all the abutting property owners, that won't change in any way, shape, or form with the vacations to Kincaid Street. The other vacations are cleaning up the roads that should have been vacated and deeded quite some time ago when Third Street was constructed. So that we're doing both together in these proposed street vacations. But at any rate, all I'm asking you to do this evening is to set a public hearing date for September 28th by approving the resolution that's before you.
All right, questions for Rebecca? This is Resolution 1018.
Make a motion, council authorize the mayor to sign resolution 1018.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Mary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our agenda items for tonight. I'll ask our city attorney if there's a need for an executive session.
No.
There is not. With that, we will be adjourned at 8:47.